The chandelier-lit ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel buzzed with the chatter of the logistics industry's elite. At $500 per plate, the Harrison family's 30th company anniversary celebration was an exercise in extravagance. I adjusted my rented tuxedo, a far cry from my daily brown delivery uniform, and watched my brother-in-law, Michael Harrison, commanding attention at the main table. To 30 years of Harrison Global Logistics, he announced, raising his crystal champagne flute, and to our newest expansion into international markets. My wife, Sarah, squeezed my hand under the table. After 5 years of marriage, she'd grown accustomed to these events where her family treated me like an embarrassing secret they had to tolerate. David, my sister-in-law, Elizabeth, called out with feigned sweetness, "Tell everyone what you do again. It's so charming." I took a measured sip of water, maintaining the calm demeanor that had served me well through countless similar encounters. I deliver packages for Nexpress Delivery. A delivery driver. Michael chuckled. Sarah, darling, when you married him, we assumed it was just a temporary position. Surely, he'd want to join the family business eventually. Something more substantial. What the Harrisons didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that I'd spent the last decade building Global Nexus shipping into the world's largest supply chain network. While they saw me driving a delivery van, I was actually orchestrating a revolutionary logistics system that handled everything from last-mile delivery to international shipping. The company operated through a complex network of subsidiaries, with my ownership carefully hidden behind layers of corporate structure. It allowed me to observe how companies really operated, especially those seeking major logistics contracts. Someone has to deliver the packages, I replied mildly, sampling the overpriced salmon. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. Yes, but driving a delivery van, all day, in that dreadful brown uniform. People need their deliveries. Still, Michael interjected, surely you want more from life. Harrison Global is always looking for ambitious individuals, even starting in entry-level management. Sarah began to speak, but I touched her arm gently. She'd wanted me to reveal my true position years ago, but I'd insisted on maintaining my cover. It allowed me to evaluate partnerships fairly, without family politics or social pressure. I'd appreciate the offer, I said, but I'm satisfied with my current position. Michael shook his head, satisfied. That's the problem with your generation. No drive. While I'm building a global empire, you're content driving around neighborhoods with packages. If only he knew that his company's entire international shipping infrastructure relied on contracts with Global Nexus subsidiaries, or that we'd just acquired controlling interests in 3 major Asian ports his expansion plans depended on. Speaking of building, Elizabeth chimed in, Michael, tell everyone about the new Asian venture. Michael's face lit up. We're finalizing deals to handle logistics for major manufacturers across Asia. Complete supply chain management, warehousing, everything. Once that's locked in, we'll dominate the Pacific trade routes. I sipped my water, thinking about the port access agreements sitting on my desk, the ones with questionable labor practices and undisclosed environmental impacts. The ones that had somehow passed initial review despite missing key compliance documentation. Must be nice, Elizabeth said, turning to me, having such a simple job. No stress. Not like Michael, managing thousands of employees and global operations. It has its moments, I replied. Moments? Michael laughed. The biggest decision you make is which package to deliver first. Meanwhile, I'm orchestrating international trade networks. Tell me, what exactly do you think about during those long hours in your little van? Routes. Efficiency. Making sure deliveries arrive on time. On time. Michael's voice dripped with condescension. You think you understand logistics better than my team. We have consultants from Goldman Sachs, executives from FedEx. But please enlighten us with your delivery driver insights. Sarah started to defend me, but I shook my head slightly. Actually, Michael, I noticed things like when shipping containers sit too long at ports or when routing algorithms create unnecessary fuel costs. Small details that impact the bottom line. Something flickered across Michael's face. Doubt? But it vanished quickly, replaced by his usual arrogance. Well, he said, standing to grab another drink. Thankfully, the real decisions are made by people who understand global business, not delivery drivers playing at being experts. I helped Sarah collect her things after dinner, while Michael continued boasting about his business acumen to anyone within earshot. She apologized again for her family's behavior, but I just kissed her cheek and assured her it was fine. They just want what they think is best for you, I said, by treating my husband like he's beneath them. They measure success in a particular way. Anything else doesn't register. Later that night, driving home to our modest suburban house, purchased with my own money, not my hidden wealth, Sarah was unusually quiet. You never let them get to you, she said finally. How do you stay so calm? I thought of the contract reviews scheduled for Tuesday, about the meetings with international shipping authorities, about the things Michael Harrison didn't know about his brother-in-law. Perspective, I said. Everyone defines success differently. The next morning, while Sarah was at her job as a pediatric nurse, I drove to my real office. Not the delivery depot where Michael imagined I spent my days, but a top-floor suite in a discreet office tower downtown. My actual workspace, where I ran Global Nexus Shipping. My executive assistant, Thomas, was waiting with updates. Harrison Global's Asian expansion contracts are ready for final review. The board meets Tuesday at 9 a.m. I spent Monday reviewing every detail of Michael's expansion plans. The numbers were troubling. His company had underestimated port costs, ignored critical environmental regulations, and made timeline commitments that were logistically impossible. His prestigious consultants had either missed these issues or, more likely, helped conceal them. Get me everything we have on Harrison Global's other operations, I told Thomas. All subsidiaries and partner companies. The pattern emerged quickly. Michael had been taking dangerous shortcuts, using aggressive pricing to win contracts, then making up the difference by overworking staff and ignoring safety protocols. The Asian expansion wasn't going to grow his business. It was a desperate gamble to generate enough cash flow to cover mounting operational losses. Monday evening, I kissed Sarah goodbye as she prepared for her night shift at the hospital. She thought I was heading to the delivery depot for the late package run. Instead, I went to my office to prepare for Tuesday's board meeting, not as Michael Harrison's brother-in-law, but as CEO of Global Nexus Shipping, the position I'd kept hidden for years. Tomorrow would change everything, for my family, for Harrison Global, and for the quiet delivery driver who had built an empire in silence. The Singapore sun was just rising over the harbor skyline as I connected to the virtual board meeting. Screens around the conference room showed faces from London, Dubai, New York, and Tokyo, the key decision-makers in global shipping, gathered to review Harrison Global's expansion proposals. Michael's face appeared on the main screen at exactly 8:58 a.m., surrounded by his team of international consultants. His confident smile faltered when he saw me sitting at the head of the virtual meeting. David? What? What are you doing here? This is a closed meeting for shipping executives. Mr. Sullivan is the founder and CEO of Global Nexus Shipping, the board chairman explained. He's been instrumental in developing our Asian port network. That's impossible, Michael sputtered. He drives a delivery van. He's my brother-in-law. Perhaps we should begin the presentations, I suggested calmly. Harrison Global is scheduled first. For the next 45 minutes, I watched Michael stumble through his proposal. Every time he mentioned a cost projection or operational timeline, his eyes darted to my screen, knowing I could see through the manipulated numbers and impossible promises. Then it was my turn. Distinguished board members, I began, I'd like to address not just what's in Harrison Global's proposal, but what's been deliberately omitted. Methodically, I outlined everything: the understaffed operations, the environmental violations, the worker safety issues I documented across their existing networks. The board members leaned forward in their screens as I presented evidence gathered from years of quiet observation. In essence, I concluded, this expansion plan is built on systematic violations of international shipping regulations, worker safety laws, and environmental protocols. These are lies. Michael shouted, his face reddening on screen. He's just a delivery driver. What could he possibly know about international shipping? The chairman raised his hand for silence. Mr. Harrison, please control yourself. Control myself? He's been spying on my company, using family connections to gather insider information. Actually, I replied quietly, everything in my presentation comes from public records and standard industry monitoring. The kind of things anyone would notice if they were actually watching their operations instead of just their profit margins. The board called a brief recess. During the break, my private line lit up with a call from Michael. Why? He demanded. All these years, playing the humble delivery man. Was it all just to destroy me? No, Michael. It was to build something real. Something based on actual value, not just appearances. You think you're better than me, more ethical. I think I chose to learn the business from the ground up, to understand every level of operations. When was the last time you actually visited one of your warehouses, talked to your workers? He was quiet for a moment. We can work something out. A merger. Combined operations. Think about it. With your infrastructure and my connections. Your connections won't matter when the international shipping authorities review your existing operations, which they will, after today's revelations. You do this to family. Family? I laughed softly. You've spent years treating me like I was beneath you, like delivering packages was something shameful. When the meeting resumed, the board's decision was unanimous. Harrison Global's expansion plans were rejected, and their existing contracts would be subject to immediate review. As the screens went dark one by one, Michael's remained lit. Sarah will never forgive you for this, he said. For what? Building an ethical business? Protecting workers? Or exposing practices that could have gotten people killed? Back in my office, Thomas was waiting with updates. Major clients were already questioning their contracts with Harrison Global. Share prices were dropping as news spread about the failed expansion and pending investigations. My phone buzzed. Sarah. Michael just called Elizabeth, she said. He's saying incredible things about you. About some shipping company. Can you come home early? There's something I need to explain. About my real work and about your brother's business. Real work? David, what's happening? You deserve the whole truth. I'll explain everything. After hanging up, I walked to my office window, watching containers being loaded at the port below. Michael had never understood that true success isn't measured in quarterly profits or stock prices, but in building something sustainable and worthwhile. Thomas, I called out, activate our contingency plans for Harrison Global's routes. If they start failing, we need to be ready to step in. The supply chain can't be disrupted. Already in motion, he replied. And David? Good luck with Sarah. I nodded, gathering my thoughts for the more difficult conversation ahead. Explained to my wife why I'd maintained this facade for so long, why I'd let her family demean me rather than reveal the truth. As I drove home in my modest car, still maintaining appearances until I could explain everything to Sarah, I passed one of my delivery vans. The driver waved, not knowing he was greeting the owner of the company, just like I'd wanted all these years. Now to find out if protecting my principles had cost me something more valuable than any shipping empire. I found Sarah sitting in our kitchen, still in her nurse's scrubs, staring at her laptop screen, displaying Harrison Global's plummeting stock price. When she looked up, Her expression was a complex mixture of confusion, hurt, and what seemed like dawning realization. "That little delivery van model on your desk," she said, "the one you said was your first delivery vehicle. It's actually the first Global Nexus van," I finished. "Every detail I told you was true. I just didn't tell you how the story ended." She closed the laptop. 10 years. 10 years of watching Michael and Elizabeth treat you like you were nothing. Of defending you at every family gathering. Of feeling guilty about their behavior. I know. And I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. The apartment we first lived in. The budget discussions. All those stories about difficult deliveries. "I made every delivery I talked about," I said quietly. "Learned every aspect of the business, from loading docks to international shipping lanes. Built Global Nexus from the ground up, understanding every detail." Sarah stood up and walked to our refrigerator, pulling down a magazine cover I'd never noticed. It showed Michael at some industry gala with the headline, "Harrison Global, the future of international shipping." "I kept this to remind myself to be proud of you anyway," she said. "To not let their success make me doubt our choices. And all this time," I took her hand. "Remember what Michael said in that article? About success being about showing off, about power and influence." She nodded. "That's when I decided to do things differently, to build something based on real value, not just appearance. Then I met you. At the hospital," she smiled, "delivering medical supplies. You were different from your family, caring about patients, working night shifts, wanting to make a real difference. You never once asked what I could give you. Because I loved you, not your job." She paused. "Though apparently I didn't know your actual job. Every delivery story was real. Every route discussion genuine. I just didn't mention that I owned the company. But why maintain the pretense for so long? Watching them mock you year after year." I sat down at our kitchen table, where we had so many honest conversations. Well, mostly honest. At first, it was about principles, wanting to be judged for who I was, not what I owned. Then it became about building something the right way. Then you were in too deep to explain without looking like you've been deceiving everyone. Something like that. Sarah joined me at the table. "Tell me about Global Nexus." Everything. For the next hour, I explained it all. The focus on worker safety and fair wages, the environmental initiatives, the technology investments that made us more efficient than competitors. With each detail, I watched her expression shift from hurt to understanding. So when Michael was cutting corners, I knew because I'd seen the practices firsthand. Had teams monitoring operations, documenting violations. In today's meeting, we rejected his expansion because it was dangerous, built on exploiting workers and ignoring safety regulations. Sarah picked up her phone, probably seeing dozens of missed calls from her family. "He's going to lose everything, isn't he? Not if he's willing to accept help, to learn to do things the right way. And if he doesn't, then yes, his company will likely fail, but that's his choice." She reached across the table, taking my hand. Our house, the car, my nursing salary. All real choices we made together. But I've matched every dollar you've earned and put it in a separate account for that children's clinic you've always dreamed of opening. That made her pause. "What?" "Check your email. The account details are there. It's in your name only. Use it however you want." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, looking around our modest kitchen where we'd shared so many meals and made so many plans. "I understand why you did it," she said finally. "The principle behind it. Even admire it. But no more secrets." "No more secrets," I promised. "Though I might still make deliveries sometimes. Keeps me connected to what matters." She laughed softly. My brilliant, complicated husband, building a global shipping empire while actually making deliveries. My phone buzzed. Michael calling again. Sarah glanced at it. Let him wait, she said. I need to know one more thing. Anything. That day you delivered supplies to my hospital. Was that really just chance? I smiled. The CEO of Global Nexus personally delivering medical supplies to a small hospital wing. What do you think? I think, she said, moving to sit beside me, that I fell in love with a delivery driver who turned out to be exactly who he seemed, just with a slightly bigger delivery route than I imagined. I pulled her close, breathing in the familiar hospital antiseptic smell that still clung to her scrubs. I love you. I love you too. But tomorrow? Tomorrow? Tomorrow you're helping me plan that children's clinic. CEO or delivery driver, you're still my husband. I smiled, already thinking about how to combine her medical expertise with my logistics network to create something meaningful. Messages kept lighting up both our phones, from Michael, from Elizabeth, from business associates suddenly discovering who I really was. But they could wait. Right now, I was exactly where I needed to be, with the one person who had loved me for exactly who I was, not what I owned. 1 month later, I stood in Global Nexus's Hong Kong office, watching Michael Harrison sign the restructuring agreement. His company hadn't collapsed entirely, but the investigations had revealed systemic problems that couldn't be ignored. He finally accepted my offer. A partial merger that would preserve jobs and services under strict ethical oversight. Done, he said, sliding the papers across the polished conference table. So you're my boss now. Not exactly, I replied. You'll stay on as regional director. Your experience has value, Michael. It just needs proper direction. He nodded, his designer suit no longer carrying quite the same swagger. Why help me? After everything. Because you're family, and because sometimes people deserve a chance to rebuild the right way. Sarah had organized a family dinner that evening at our home, the first since the truth emerged. Elizabeth arrived first, noticeably subdued but making an effort. Her social media influence had taken a hit when her posts about my brother, the shipping magnate, suddenly featured the wrong brother. Nice kitchen, she said, examining what she'd previously dismissed as quaint. Very homey. It is, Sarah replied, handing her a glass of wine. Amazing how much better things look when you stop performing for others. Michael arrived with his wife, Amanda, who'd barely left their house since the news broke. But she came, and that meant something. Before we eat, I said, standing at our familiar kitchen table, I want to share something. Global Nexus is launching a new initiative, expedited medical supply chains for underserved communities. Sarah squeezed my hand. We've been developing this project together, combining her healthcare knowledge with my logistics expertise. The Sarah Sullivan Health Access Program, I continued. Because success isn't just about shipping goods, it's about delivering what matters. Michael cleared his throat. I'd like to contribute, if you'll let me. Share what I've learned about what not to do. We'd welcome that, Sarah said softly. Elizabeth raised her glass. To new beginnings? And to seeing what was always there, Amanda added, speaking up for the first time that evening. Later, after everyone had left, Sarah and I sat on our back porch, watching the sunset. You know, she said, we could move now. Buy something bigger. Do you want to? She looked around our neighborhood, where her patients often waved as they passed. No, this is home. Just like your deliveries are part of who you are. Speaking of which, I checked my watch. I'm doing the hospital route tomorrow. Want to ride along? The CEO of Global Nexus personally delivering medical supplies. Best way to stay connected to what matters. Sarah smiled. Pick me up at the clinic site. We can review the construction plans during your lunch break. The next morning, I put on my brown uniform, pressed and professional, as always. As I steered the delivery van through city streets, I thought about success, about appearance versus substance, about the quiet satisfaction of doing things right. A message from Michael. Meeting with port workers today. Going to listen this time. Another from Elizabeth. Starting a blog about ethical business practices. Thanks for the inspiration. And finally, one from Sarah. Proud of you, delivery man. See you at lunch. Sometimes the biggest achievements aren't measured in stock prices or market share. Sometimes they're found in packages delivered on time, in family healing slowly, in trust rebuilt step by step. Next delivery, I announced to myself, pulling up to the hospital loading dock. Medical supplies. A familiar voice. Right on schedule, as always. I smiled, seeing Sarah waiting with construction plans for her clinic tucked under her arm. Success isn't about who knows what you own. It's about knowing who you are and being true to that knowledge. Even if who you are is a global shipping CEO who still makes personal deliveries. Because sometimes the smallest packages carry the most important things, like trust, integrity, and love. And those are worth more than any shipping empire.